and today I'm going to show you how to make a cracking loaf of bread using the bread maker to make the dough and your oven to bake the loaf. It's a nice easy process. I've got a great recipe, a bit of white, a bit of wholemeal. Let's get started. Okay, basic ingredients for making a good loaf of bread. Yeast, obviously, you can buy it in a tin or you can buy sachets. Salt, you can go a bit posh and have some sea salt, or you can have the industrial table salt. Some white flour, just plain bread white flour. Wholemeal flour, olive oil, sugar and warm water. That's all you need. Okay, that's the ingredients. Now onto the equipment that we need. Obviously we're going to need a bread maker. A standard bread maker can be bought quite cheaply. We need a measuring jug for the water. Digital scales are really useful. A baking sheet, and last but not least a teaspoon. Okay, two of the most important things: yeast obviously and warmth. Now what I've done is I've put the bucket from the bread maker onto the digital scales, set it to millilitres, zeroed it. I also pre-warmed this so that when I pour the water it's going to keep the heat, it's not going to take the heat out of the water. Now you just get your measuring jug and you pour in, keeping an eye on the digital readout until it gets to 320 millilitres. There we go, almost there. Okay, that's the water in. Next thing to do, get your yeast, either a sachet for your bread maker is fine, or you can get the stuff in a tin. Sprinkle in a spoon of sugar. Next thing, now if you like quite a brown crust, the more sugar you add, the browner your crust will be. I normally add 2 decent teaspoons of brown sugar. Put that in with the yeast, give it a little stir. Next thing, add your salt. 1 teaspoon of salt is more than enough. A decent heat teaspoon. The malt and stuff, a decent teaspoon. With your industrial table salt, maybe a little less because it's more concentrated. Give that a wee mix through. Now, you don't have to leave this standing, but if you leave it for 5 minutes, that's not a bad thing. Okay, let's leave it for 5 minutes. Back in 5 minutes. Okay, that's 5 minutes now. We've got a nice frothy mixture in there. The next thing, and the last thing I'm going to do, is add some oil and the flour. The first thing is to add 35 millilitres of oil. Okay, it's 35 millilitres. You can add a little bit more, a little bit less. It's not an exact science. Okay, that's the mixture with the oil in it. Now we're going to add the flour. I like to use 50-50 plain white flour. Get it from any supermarket. You can use the supermarket's own brand. It's perfectly good. And the supermarket brand's own wholemeal flour. Now, I use a bit of imperial generally when I'm putting my weighing out the flour. 9 ounces of wholemeal, and it goes. Bish bosh. Again, this is not an exact science. As long as you get 1 pound and 2 ounces, you know, you can have a bit more of white, a bit less of wholemeal. This all depends on your personal preferences. That's the wholemeal. Then we're going to add the white flour. Okay, that's that. All done. Now, that's our mixture all ready to go. Go to the bread maker. Now, all bread makers have got a setting for dough. Now, in my experience, that setting takes 1.5 hours. But if you leave the mixture in for 1.5 hours, it will rise up completely. So then when you tip that dough out, it tends to sink. Now if you take it out after an hour, just under an hour, it's still rising, which means when you put it on the baking tray in the oven, the bread is still rising and you get that delicious cracking of the loaf, and it really makes it nice and fluffy and aerated inside. Okay? And it goes. Screw it in, go to your menu, that's it, start, that's it. Now what to do is set your any timer. Make sure you come back in under an hour's time, maybe 55 minutes, and we'll be back in an hour's time and we'll see what we've got in the bucket then. Okay, that's 55 minutes, the bread's been in the bread maker. Now normally the bread maker takes an hour and a half for the dough. Now, trust me, that's wrong. It needs to be in for just under an hour. If you just have a look at this in the bucket. See, it's risen about halfway up the bucket. If that was left in for another half hour, it would rise all the way to the top. And we don't want that. What we're going to do now is going to take that bread out, that dough. We're going to put it straight onto the baking sheet. This will give us like what they call a kind of cob loaf. Now you can, if you wish, put the dough into your standard bread tin. It'll give you that classic loaf shape, but I prefer to do it like this. Okay, now the flour on the baking sheet. Now what you want to do is, this dough is going to come out, what you want it to come out in one big nice lump, okay? Might need a little bit of teasing out, just put a bit of flour in your hands, it's coming out a treat, and it will come out ever so slowly, eventually, trust me. It's important to have a bit of flour on your hands. Here it comes. Come on baby, come on. Okay, there we are. There you go. Now you can put that into the oven as it is, if you wish, and that'll rise up beautifully. Or what I tend to do is just give it a little turn on the flour, tuck it underneath itself. Pop it down. That's it, and then in the oven. 35 minutes on 220. That's it. Let's go back in 35 minutes and see how it looks. Okay, that's 35 minutes. Let's see how it's looking. There we go, that's looking good. Looks good. Last thing to do, just need to let that sit for maybe half an hour, maybe an hour, and just let that dry off properly. Perfect. Okay, that's now an hour since the bread came out of the oven. Still quite warm. Bread knife. Let's have a wee look, see what it looks like inside, shall we? Oh, look at that. Look. Nice and easy to cut actually. Lovely. Toasted. That's how you make a loaf of bread, there you go.